Okay, today is the day that I open up about how my mental health tanked during college and how I started to improve it. I'm in my senior year right now. I'm actually in my dorm room. And so it's been hard to avoid thinking about this. In order for you to understand my mental health in college and how it got worse during college, I feel like I need to talk about my mental health before college. So in late 2018, I was diagnosed with OCD and anxiety, and I struggled with both of those, OCD and generalized anxiety disorder, from way before then. So I started college in 2017. I remember in 5th grade, my teacher bringing up that this celebrity had OCD and me being like, that kind of sounds like me. Like, not really telling anyone, but like being like, why do I relate to that so much? I think the big thing is that when you're young, your parents don't want anything to be wrong with you, especially because I was high functioning, always in honors classes, never publicly showed any problems really. I never really got help. In high school, I was in AP Psych, and I went up to my teacher because we were literally talking about OCD as the lesson, and I was just like, what do I do if I think I have this? And I went on this whole journey of, she said, go to your doctor. Then my doctor said, you need to go to this mental health person. Wound up taking really years to actually get help because I never really wanted to call the mental health people. I didn't really have help. My family's not the biggest on mental health, on National Mental Health Day or something, or World Mental Health Day or something like that. I just called one year and started getting help. So if you don't know how OCD works, you basically have obsessions and then you obsess over those things, and to calm those obsessions down, to resolve them, you sort of do something, which is the compulsion. So obsessive compulsive disorder. And so my OCD is very contamination based. And so for me, when I was in high school, if someone would cough, right, and then let's say hand me, or touch me or hand me something, I would get extremely nervous. And if I put that piece of paper maybe that they coughed in their hand, touched the paper, handed it to me, if I put that in my bag, I actually got nervous as I even put my hand toward here, like people cough like that. Paper in my bag, I would then sanitize. Then when I got home, I would want to Lysol that paper or Clorox wipe that paper or anything to clean it. I would then clean my book bag because cross-contamination. So yeah, that was my OCD then. And then because of all of that germ-based anxiety, basically I was constantly, my baseline of life was anxious. Because you're basically, with OCD, 24/7 looking out for germs. You never want to come into contact with germs. And you have to be on really high alert in order to monitor your entire environment to make sure that you're staying clean. I think that's part of what helped me grow in generalized anxiety, is because I was just constantly anxious, even if there was no germ issue. I was sent off to college right at the end of high school, and I came here to Ithaca College. At that point, it wasn't as bad as it progressed during college, right? So in the beginning, I had a roommate. I was extremely anxious about having a roommate because I was like, how am I going to perform all of my compulsions in front of someone? I'll never be alone. Whereas if I went into my bedroom door at home, I was literally alone. Spraying Lysol wasn't super difficult. I mean, it was just because my mom didn't like it. And you can smell it even outside of a room, but I was just very concerned about that, I remember. And just little things, if I got out the shower and my toe touched something, I'd sanitize my toe. And so I just was like, how is someone going to watch all of that and be okay with that? I feel like Ginger Z said this, and she said it really well, just that the actual behaviors of someone with a mental health condition, people aren't exactly so open to yet. I was sharing a shower with who knows how many people. Everything was communal. I didn't want to touch anything. If my towel touched a piece of the shower wall, I would freak out. I didn't want to put my stuff where everyone put their stuff. And I remember my roommate once, he was amazing, honestly. And I remember him once saying, like, if you spray anymore, like, we're gonna, like, not be able to breathe in here, like, something about that. And I just remember, like, with people don't understand, with OCD, it's not like, you can just be like, cool, I won't spray anymore. Like, or I won't, like, wipe this down. It's like, I need to wipe this down, or else I'm not going to be able to stop thinking about it, or else I'm not going to feel safe, or else I'm not going to feel calm. I remember having one professor who did like cough in his hand, sneeze in his hand. I still remember that day. That was scary for me. And so it was just a lot of, because they pass out papers also around all these new people that you might want to be friends with. And you want to be really calm and comfortable to be able to like easily make friends and easily like hang out, while also trying to maintain that no one saw me like sanitizing. Once I was in my second semester of my first year, I got this huge break with Instagram. It was incredible, it was amazing, but I remember having really bad OCD that day that I was on in front of 200 something million people. And of course no one knew. I think my producer did. I think she saw a lot of the compulsion of sanitizing that day, but I don't think she thought anything of it because we were at a really, really big event. It did kind of make sense. I started to fly out more, right? And when you fly on a plane, I love aviation so much. There's a lot of, you know, you're in a tight tube and there's germs. It's just the deal. Often when I'd be traveling for stories or traveling for events, I'd fly in and then I'd always really, really want to be able to go to the hotel first, because then I could, if I wanted to wipe my clothes down or change or shower or anything, I could do that. And oftentimes when you land in a new city and you have an event or something, you may not have a hotel room. You may just be going to the event. You may then be flying out again that night. They might need you, right? I've been where I've landed and they're like, we need you right now. I was dealing with so much of like trying to like be a good journalist, be a good on-camera personality, be a good in-person personality, work the room, right? While also running to the bathroom because someone touched me and I wanted to like wash my like shirt or something. It was one of the best times of my life. I was having so much fun, but all the while dealing with this really, really terrible disorder. I finished that semester, everything went well. I don't know how I did it, but I did. In between my freshman year and my sophomore year, I was hit by a car. And that, that really threw me for a loop. And amplified anxiety. In a boot or in a cast thingy, it's just more stuff that you now have to clean or that you now have to deal with, and it's just stressful. On top of dealing with the reality that I just lived after being hit by a car. It was a crazy gap year where I took off from school, had surgery, had physical therapy, had started doing real mental health therapy, and I had a therapist for that, and that was amazing. For the very first time receiving treatment, because when I first got to college, I did go to our counseling and psychological center here, and for other things they were helpful, but for OCD they basically, I was told like you would qualify like 5 out of the 7 things to make you to say you have OCD, and so we wouldn't, I don't know if they said they wouldn't do a full treatment or something. It was just very, very odd, and it made me feel like I was some OCD imposter, and I'm like, yo, like I'm sitting here like Lysoling my textbook, like someone help. I don't think I went back to talk to them about OCD after that, because it just was like, this is not working. So I finally had this therapist who diagnosed me, who really saw what I was struggling with. She didn't recommend and really push meds on me because I was functioning, you know what I mean? So I think that I'm really blessed in that way, that I did not have it like to the worst possible where I was debilitated at that point. So when I got to my sophomore year, after the gap year, that is when everything changed and I totally hit rock bottom. One thing that I think was terrible about that time was that I was literally Kid you not, living in a shoebox. My room was so small. If you go here to IC, I lived in terraces, but I lived in a single. I literally had my bed raised so that I could fit everything else under it. I recently heard of someone else who was struggling with their mental health in that dorm as well, and I'm sure there were other people struggling inside there as well. It was dim, it was dark, my bed covered my window kind of. It was terrible, especially when it's freezing outside and we live in, Ithaca College is in Ithaca, New York, which it gets cloudy, it gets snowy here, the weather gets really, really depressing here, for lack of a better term. You can experience seasonal depression here. My OCD was at a level I have never been at before. I was sanitizing every second, like legit, no lie. This has been used since I got to school. We are going into week 3. Back when I was in terraces, when I was in that dorm, this would be gone. That's how bad my OCD was. And I'm the only one using this. At this point, you're thinking like, wait, but you've had a therapist, you've started to get better. But okay, when I was having a therapist, I started doing exposure therapy, which was helpful, but it was really minimal. I was afraid to touch the train handle, so I would do that. And even that sometimes I would be scared of doing, but I'd be like, oh, what a brave boy, you touched the train handle, like so good exposure. I needed much more than that. And it was so bad that year, and I've never told this to anyone, but I was literally at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., after I finished my homework, I would walk down. It was so dark, so late, so many steps, so cold, and I would walk all the way down to campus to my classroom, passing deer, because it was so late and Ithaca has deer, and go to the classroom with Lysol wipes. I'm not lying to you. I'm literally not lying to you. I would go to the classroom at 2 a.m. with Lysol wipes, hoping that campus security didn't see me on the cameras, like going in there thinking I was doing something bad, especially being black at a predominantly white institution. Not saying Ithaca has any, it's not Ithaca, it's just general anxiety about like being black at a PWI going into a classroom at 2 a.m. So anxiety about that, then going into the classroom with Lysol wipes to wipe down literally the desks because I knew they weren't cleaning anything. Pretty sure they weren't. Professors that would cough and then they'd hand out papers and then I would be extremely nervous and I'd be sanitizing and then, oh my God, you'd have to pass around the attendance sheet, which, oh my God, I wanted to miss class just so I didn't have to fill out the attendance sheet. But when I would go at 2 a.m., I would go wipe down the desks, wipe down some parts of the chairs that were in the area I would sit in because sometimes the desks got jumbled so I didn't know which one I would have that day. And I would just hope that by the time I had that class, that desk was still clean. I would do it for classes that I had earlier in the day because later in the day, by the time 5 kids use the desk, I doubt it's clean anymore. Mental health in college, I don't think people understand. It takes over your entire life if your mental health's not good. Like, instead of going to bed and getting that sleep, I was going to the classroom to clean the desks. And while taking 5 to 6 classes, I remember I was taking 6 that semester that COVID started, and I had someone in my class legit ask me, are you okay? And that's when I was like, first off, because of who I am and how much I've been able to hide my OCD and how good I think I am at that. And I think I am usually pretty good, honestly. Or at least people don't always think too much of it. But when someone saw and was so worried about me to ask if I was okay, I was like, literally dropped the class and never went back. Like I'm pretty sure that was my last day in that class. And it was way too hard because the Spanish professors going up to everyone, to touch their books and help them and show them, and then coming over to me and doing the same thing. It was just very, very difficult. For me, mental health has always been like, sometimes I'm having the most amazing time, but then I have to have this thing that's weighing me down. That was the first time that I ever had to pull back and be like, I can't do 6 classes, which 6 classes is hard for anyone, mental health or no mental health issues. I was at the point where I was legit just considering leaving. I could not do this. I was ready to leave school. I was like, I will do online school. I will do, like, I'll figure out whatever I need to figure out, but I'm not accomplishing my dreams. I'm not, progressing in other things that I want to because of how consumed I am with school. But not only that, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is way too hard to show up and be every single class, like, scared, in addition to doing somehow really well in most classes. I had a professor too who would cough in her elbow, and that always made me so happy until you crossed your arms. Do you see how much thinking there is that goes into this? Anyway, I wanted like a literal like OCD rehab to just fix this. Like, I was just like, I need to just like go to an actual center who focuses, like, I had done a story on gaming disorders. So I was like, oh my God, like, I looked up, there was also in Seattle a OCD rehab center that I found, and it was like, maybe I just need to do that. And I know that's really expensive. My family would not have had the money for that. I wouldn't have had the money for that either at the time, but I would have had to come up with it. Seriously, I don't know what I would have done, but I could not go on like this. And as I'm going through all of that and trying to figure out what's gonna be my next move for my mental health, because if anything is costing you your mental health, it's not worth it. Because it's your life. It's not like, we don't get a practice round on this. Right around the time that I was thinking about all this and all this was happening, COVID happened. We went on spring break and we just never came back. What was so huge about this moment was that there was no hand sanitizer anywhere. I'm in Ithaca now, but I live in New York, in Brooklyn. I went everywhere to find hand sanitizer and I couldn't find it. I asked my mom, she's a teacher, to get some from her job. They didn't have any. I truly did everything. I was looking up online, like, where do you find hand sanitizer? And everyone was either like the black market, or you can try to go to Staples, Office Depot, those stores that have hand sanitizer, but no one really thinks of it. So I called every Staples they didn't have, went to Target, went to Planet Fitness. I went in and asked for hand sanitizer. They didn't have any. And I only had a little bit of hand sanitizer left from here, from Ithaca, and literally there was just a day where I ran out for the very first time in my life. And that was the exposure therapy that I always needed. I got into bed without being able to sanitize my hands after taking a shower. I just remember my mom saying, like, you don't need it, like, don't worry about it, like, you don't need it. And I was like, you don't understand, I need it. I got in bed that night and I'm sure that was the most still I've ever been in bed, because I didn't want to touch my bed. I didn't want to ruin it, because that's what would happen when I couldn't clean things. Is I would think I'm ruining it by just like touching it. I think I went weeks without hand sanitizer. I did wind up finding one of those like method sprays that you can spray on a paper towel to clean something. But truly, it was the hardest time of my life. People were talking about a new normal, and for me it was like, wow, like, I do deserve a new normal. Because of that exposure, like, when that happened, I was like, this is going to be my new normal. I was like, if I have gotten through this and every single day was a challenge of like, how do I like even work? How do I touch my laptop when I like washed my hands but then touched the thing to close the faucet? Like, I would usually sanitize after that. If my mom coughs and then touches the fridge, how do I touch the fridge and not sanitize? But I couldn't. That was what I needed. And I think that if you're going through any kind of anxiety or any kind of mental health issue, you really have to start to figure out the root problem. You really have to figure out what it is that you're afraid of. And I know that's hard. I know it's so hard to face whatever you are scared of. But truly, like, the phrase, the only way out is through, like, you have to go through exposing yourself. Like, that's what exposure therapy is. You have to go through exposing yourself to the things that are making your life, that you're trying to avoid through your life, that are hard, that are scary. And so for me, it was really exposing myself to germs. The whole pandemic, I also thought back to something that my therapist said, which was, there are good germs and there are bad germs. She said something along these lines of, I don't know that you need to sanitize before you stick your hand in a bag of chips to take one. All the germs around you right now are okay. They're not gonna hurt you, they're not gonna kill you, right? And then, for the first time in my life, being able to really clearly see what a bad germ was. COVID-19. Like, that's a germ that you should be like, gloves on, sanitizing, mask on, like glasses on. Like, that's a germ that you don't want, right? That's a germ that you would stop yourself from coming into contact with, that you would be high alert around, right? That could cause you anxiety, right? Versus all these other germs that I don't even know the names of, right? They're probably on the Clorox bottle, like, that I was deathly afraid of, like as if it was a bear coming to attack me. Like, that's what she described, what I was saying as. And it's true, like, living every day on like caveman alert, your body is literally that afraid that you could literally feel the anxiety inside you. When we talk about like starting to improve your mental health, it has really been about the exposing. It has really been the continuous facing of what is scaring you. And it's fine to like want to avoid that. Like, I get it. I did it for years and I still do it, right? Even after having went through mega exposure, there are still things that I was probably like able to handle those few weeks, right? Or that month or whatever it was, that today I don't handle well. I still sanitize after. I would recommend really starting to figure out maybe where it came from in the beginning. And that's what therapy helped with, was like shadow work. Where did these ideas come from that I needed to create basically all these rules for myself of how to live? Another thing that helped me was always believing that it would get better. And I know when you're in that, that's really hard. Like, I didn't believe it in the way that I believe it today. I had it was a very light underlying belief that like, maybe when I'm 40, I'll be tired of this, right? Because I heard that people would say like, don't worry, this doesn't last forever. To me, it just felt so hard, that idea of one day just dropping it all. And so I didn't know how to really move through that. But what I will say is just believe. Even if you don't believe it, continue to tell yourself that you believe that you will get better. If I didn't go to therapy, I don't know how I would have gotten through the pandemic, right? Because all those therapy lessons were like little voices in my head guiding me through that. If I didn't have that, I don't know what the pandemic would have done for me, if the exposure would have helped or not, because I didn't understand that I needed exposure therapy. I think back to when I would hold the train handle and think that that was major exposure. Just my hand being covered in germs, but when your entire body is covered in germs and you are deathly afraid of germs, it's a totally different thing, especially when you literally kind of need hand sanitizer because you're afraid of COVID. I was so attached to OCD, and I still am, right? I still am, right? Especially because I still have some of the issues, right? I was so attached to it that I didn't know what life would be like without OCD. And so I didn't want to try to ask God or the universe for that. I mean, I would ask for it to get better, but I wouldn't want to, I didn't know how to, and I still don't know how to like pray about like total removal. And I don't think that, I also really believe that this is like a journey. And it's not like, I remember interviewing Dr. Hillary Cash at the gaming center that I talked about, Seattle Restart, and like, it was like some people will act like, oh, when are they out of the oven? Like, when have you fixed them? And it's like, that's not how this works. I think it's a process. I think it's a journey over many, 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 many years. The more you expose yourself, the more, if it's social anxiety, if it's, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It was hard. It was horrible. I can feel the ickiness when I think about it from that time. And I developed other things, as OCD started to take less of a hold in terms of germ contamination, I started to develop more intrusive thoughts during COVID. Of course, I'm still in a way better place than I was, but I just don't want you to think it just ends. And maybe it does for some people. I don't know. Maybe at one point I'll be in my life and I'll be like, this is over. Like, I couldn't care less. I don't need hand sanitizer to go outside. I'm not there yet. Especially now that we're in the pandemic. I mean, I think especially being at college, I think it's a good thing to sanitize like as much as possible. I'm way, way, way better. Way better. And so that's, you know, from where I was. And so that I just felt like I should share this, and felt like I should talk about it, and felt like this could maybe help someone. Right now I'm in a place where I'm able to experience germs. I'm able to experience them and not have this sense of impending doom, like everything is an emergency and I need to clean immediately. I just have an ability to be able to move through life and interact with people and hug people and not freak out. I'm not talking to someone and praying they don't cough. I just have so much more of a ability to be a little bit more free. There are times when I get home and I'm like, that's gross, I need to wipe down my laptop, so, you know, like someone just touched it, or like, you know what I mean? Like, there are moments, right? Once you experience it, once you go through it, there's way less of, you realize it's not as scary, or it's just not as dangerous or as much of a big deal as you always thought it was, right? Because I literally sat in germs for weeks, if not a month, if not longer. There's no, you know, it's just, I definitely just see it in a different way, and it's just not this sense of impending doom, which is really, really nice to be able to pass the attendance sheet around in class and not freak out or be scared or be in pain or, you know, be sanitizing every 2 seconds. That's definitely not my life anymore, and I'm really, really, really grateful. And I think I'm gonna make more videos about this topic. I don't know, I have ideas, but I don't know exactly what would be helpful, so let me know in the comments if there's anything from my journey that you think would be super helpful to hear about. If there's any way I can help truly, because being at this point, I just feel like now I just want to give back as much as I can. Your mindset, your physical health, all of it plays a role, and I'm getting so interested in the combo between physical health and mental health, internal health versus just mental health as well. So, because as I grow more, I'm realizing how much I can feel my anxiety, which means it's internally like messing things up too. I just want to give you love and just tell you to like honestly believe that better is coming for you if you're struggling. And I would just really recommend trying to expose yourself to whatever kind of germs or whatever kind of issues or whatever. Like, I really think that is the key to this, is figuring out the problem, figuring out where it comes from, and then also just like literally putting yourself in scenarios to experience it. I know that's really hard. I don't know if I was forced into it, right? Like, I was literally forced. I didn't have any hand sanitizer. I know I wouldn't have been so strong to do that on my own. So, hey, if you can, bravo. And if you can even think about it, if you can even, you know, try to figure it out, bravo to you. I'm sending you all the love. I really, really, thank you for listening to this, truly, because this was hard for me to film. I know I needed to film this for a while. I'm sending you the highest vibes, and I will see you right back here the next time I post a video. Thank you. Bye. Aww. I did it.